The underwater world and the vast reaches of outer space are curiously interrelated. For example, from underwater come algae, which are rich in nutrition, and also liberate oxygen from carbon dioxide. They can thus help sustain life in the vacuum of space. My name's Mike Nelson. I was working on saltwater algae for a space laboratory, searching in offshore waters for new specimens, and also checking out desirable spots on the ocean floor for experimental farming of algae. In the course of my search, I ran across a large area covered with a type of plant that I'd never seen before. I was puzzled by its abundance. I cut some samples and loaded them into a sack for the lab. As I headed for the surface, I had no way of knowing that the harmless-looking strands of green leaf would prove almost fatal to me. In the space laboratory next morning, I got some more information on the plants that I had discovered from my collaborator, Dr. Ken Madison.
Mike, do you know the English word assassin is derived from the Arabic hashashin?
No.
Do you know what hashashin means?
Well, I'm not up in my Arabic.
Well, literally it means hemp eater, but by extension it means someone who chews the hemp to get the hashish out of it.
All this come under the heading of classified information?
All right, I'll get to the point. Hashish is one of the most violent drugs that man has ever put in his system.
Well, that's something I do know.
All right. Now, the active principle in that drug, similar to what we call marijuana, could be extracted from those plants you brought up from the bottom of the ocean.
Really? Well, the only hashish that I know about comes from Indian hemp. That grows in dry land.
Hemp is only one of a number of plants that produces narcotic resin. And whoever has developed this underwater strain has added to that number.
Well, how do you know that someone's developed it?
Because it's a hybrid. And it was produced by a brilliant job of crossbreeding. Now, the original of this plant is called cannabis. It's from the family Urticaceae.
Oh, that was from another family.
Someone has succeeded in crossing it with a marine plant, which enables the cannabis to survive underwater. And what's more important, to go right on producing that hypnotic resin. And that, of course, is what makes people see and feel and hear things that aren't there.
And they can actually process something like marijuana from this plant?
Yeah. Something that has the same effect, only probably stronger.
Boy, that's quite a setup. There could be acres of this stuff down there.
Yeah, it's kind of frightening when you think about the possibilities. Somebody could produce narcotics by the ton.
Be cheap, too. Cheap enough for a kid to buy it.
And underwater plants grow very rapidly. And besides, they can be sown and harvested in secret.
They can be sown and harvested, maybe. As far as keeping it a secret, I think I can do something about that. Yeah, will you give me the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, please? And I want to talk to Andy Watson there. Andy Watson lost no time in joining us. Ken and I were both amazed at the amount of interest that he displayed in our report. It's right out there in that direction. About a quarter of a mile past the breakwater.
How big was the field?
Well, it's hard to tell. No, visibility isn't that good underwater. There's an awful lot of that stuff out there.
Well, we'd like to know more about that underwater area before we take any specific action, but this could close a troublesome open file.
Open file?
Yeah. But we picked up a pusher not long ago. He had an unusually large amount of what appeared to be marijuana in his possession.
Appeared to be marijuana?
That's right. Under analysis, it turned out to be related, but more powerful.
Well, that describes our plant all right.
It describes it perfectly. The chemical analysis also indicated a strong iodine content.
Which associated it with the ocean.
Right. We figured it was stored underwater, but, well, the ocean's a big place. We searched for a hiding place of some kind, but so far nothing has shown up. The possibility of it being grown underwater never occurred to us.
So what's the next step?
Well, could you pick up some additional specimens of the plant for us?
Sure.
And can you make a survey of the general area, give us an idea of the quantity of these plants?
Well, it'd take a little time, depending on the size of the area.
When can you start?
How about now?
Well, any sooner than that would be contrary to regulations.
I piled my equipment into a small boat and headed out for the narcotics fields. I hoped to attract as little attention as possible. If this were a commercial marijuana installation, it might be under some sort of long-range surveillance. And observation I didn't want or need.
Excuse me for a minute, Ken. I'm gonna spot some men around this area just in case. Keep an eye on them.
Sure.
As nearly as I could tell, this was a corner or a boundary of the narcotics field. I could see that it went off in two directions from here. As I had told Andy, I would have to circle the field to get an idea of its size.
How long can he stay down on one tank of air?
Depends on the size of the tank and the depth of the dive.
Well, he'd be in a rough spot without that boat, wouldn't he?
That narcotics field is very large. He may not be able to do the job at all.
This was shaping up as quite a project. The field was far larger than I had imagined. I swam along the perimeter, peering about for some end to it. I had worried about being observed on the surface. I didn't know what was going on much closer at hand. It was time to surface and change tanks. To mark the spot where I could resume the search, I set out a marker buoy. I had enough air left to get a few more samples for Andy Watson. The strange knob on the end of the spear knocked me for a loop. The two divers evidently thought I was out cold. I played along with the gag, even when they pulled the air hose from my mouth. Fortunately, they didn't wait around. As soon as they were out of sight, I got out of there fast. A little first aid, and I was back in business with a couple of very sympathetic listeners.
That ought to hold it for a while.
Thank you.
You had just sent up a marker boy, huh?
Yeah, I was running low on air, and I wanted to be sure of my starting point before I returned to carry on my survey.
Is that when you were hit?
Well, it wasn't quite then. I decided to cut some plants first. It was when I was heading back to my boat that it happened.
But if they wanted to kill Mike, why didn't they use a spear with a sharp point?
Narcotics criminals are very cagey. If Mike had been obviously killed by a spear gun, it would have touched off a big investigation.
Yeah, it probably would have led to the discovery of their narcotics fields.
Exactly. They tried to make it look like an accident.
I see.
Now, lucky they did, Mike, or you wouldn't be here.
Hey, why don't we put their minds at rest?
What do you mean?
Give out word that the body of an unidentified skin diver was found drifting in the ocean. Apparently the victim of drowning.
Good. That might throw him off the track. Then we can make further plans.
Yeah, well, my further plans are already made. And it includes those two characters who tried to kill me. It didn't take us any time to come up with a sound, workable plan. Next morning, Andy Watson and I set out to put it into effect.
Mike, my conscience tells me to try and talk you out of this.
Well, you tell your conscience to take a vacation.
But you're dealing with a powerful narcotics ring. You'll be risking your life.
Yeah, plug this in for me, will you?
Yeah.
That's it, this.
Got it.
The basis of our plan was a watch on the narcotics field by sonar. I was preparing to take it down and wire it up in some central spot where it could hear the arrival of any divers who came down to harvest their illegal crop. By now, Andy and I were sure the divers weren't arriving from a boat on the surface. Andy had too many men spotted around the coastline to let them get away with that. Somehow, in some mysterious way, the divers were getting into the field without being observed. To Andy, it was just as important to trap the men responsible for the underwater narcotics as to destroy the field itself. And as for me, well, I had a score to settle with a couple of them.
Good luck. Stay out of traps.
Hey, I'll try. Well, hand me my sonar pickup there, will you?
Yeah.
It was a long way out to a likely hiding place for the sonar pickup, but I had enough wire for the job. I was confident I had hidden it well. I swam back toward shore, certain that we'd see results soon, or rather hear them.
The sonar is working fine. So far, everything's as quiet as a mouse.
Oh, that's good.
Except for a few fish here and there. It's pretty good sized ones at that. Makes a fellow wish he had a rod and reel. Not big enough to catch a fish or a dope grower.
Well, I found a good spot for the sonar pickup. Now all we can do is wait.
Yeah.
We took turns all through the day and then the night. Nothing happened. You heard anything? Get some sleep for a while, huh? Let me take over.
Yeah.
But next morning, we got a pickup.
Wait! Wait! I think we got some.
Way down there, all right. Sounds like more than one. I'll soon find out. This time I was armed. I hoped that I wouldn't have to use the spear gun, but I wanted to be able to defend myself if I had to. There they were, two of them, as sonar had indicated, and they were not armed, except with the knives they used to harvest the marijuana. They spotted me. I had to make a quick decision. I fired over their heads, hoping to scare them into surrender. One turned and fled. The other didn't scare easy. He came charging at me with his knife. I didn't have any more spears, but the gun helped me block the knife attack. A twist, and I had him. I cut his air hose. That would force him to the surface where Andy Watson's men would be waiting. That left the other man to be accounted for, and he was in a hurry. I strained to catch up to him. He was tiring. He dropped his sack of marijuana. That made it easier for him. I lost sight of him for a moment. Then I saw him, swimming into the mouth of a big intake tube of some kind on the shoreline. Was this a trap? Set up for an emergency like this? Or was this the entrance the divers used to go unobserved to the narcotics field? Well, there was only one way to find out. I moved cautiously. I could be attacked and cut off at any moment. Another tube descended vertically into this one. There was light above. I was sure that the diver had gone up this way. I went up too. I was in a warehouse of some sort. There were wet footprints leading from the manhole. The diver had escaped in that direction. I slipped quietly out of my gear. I was going to find him or else. He was waiting for me.
Get over there. Come on, get over there. You all right?
I guess so. Except my Adam's apple. Well, I think it's ruined for good.
Well, the man you chased home with a bale of narcotics was Mark Merrill.
Mark Merrill, is that somebody I should know?
Well, he's been around for a long time.
I don't imagine he'll be around much longer, though.
That's for sure.
He's quite a man. Crazy combination of intelligence and chicanery. You know, he admitted, not without a show of pride, that he developed the cannabis hybrid and that he leased the building with the underwater intake and set up a legal warehouse business there as a front for his narcotics activity.
It's a clever idea. The weed could be planted and harvested without anybody showing up on top of the water.
Andy,
Yeah.
tell me, how'd you find that warehouse? And so soon, too.
Well, when I lost you on sonar, I warned my patrols. One of them spotted bubbles and knew it wasn't a mermaid. And then when we picked up the man with the cut air hose, well, he gave us a rest.
I see.
But what Merrill was doing was brilliant botanical work. We could use him in the space program.
You could have.
Yeah, I think we can get along without his talents. Hello there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. You know, 3/5 of the world is covered by the sea. And how little most of us know about that underwater world. Go below with us again next week, huh? For another thrilling adventure in Sea Hunt.